Good old boys.
I'm Mark.
Bog beef. Very special guest this week. We got big Oliver Bateman back with us.
What's up, guys?
This week, if you haven't listened to the first one with Bateman, you should go check it out. But if you have, you know what this is about. We're going to be taking you backstage to the writers' room. This is it. This is the control room for the internet. This is I heard the other week like they caught that guy. There's like this guy in Finland that he writes every pop music song that comes out, and or Sweden or one of those places. I remember there was I was thinking about that because there were speculations when that last Taylor Swift album came out, and they were like, there was these songs about relationships going bad, and they were like, was this about that was this? Do you think this was about what her deal with Mayer was about? Harry Styles, other Jonas brother out there? And no, it was about Svetlana, a husky Slavic woman. That's what it's about. That's what her whole album is about. It's what every pop album's been about for the past 20 years, and you should appreciate that. And when you're flipping through Twitter, when you're on the Atlantic, you're reading these hot takes. The hot take is not about climate change. Nobody gives a shit about that. It's about blowing out the grease trap at the Golden Corral at 6 a.m. That's where it comes from. That's the heart. You know about that, don't you, Oliver?
Oh yeah. Just people want to see recognizable words, but they don't need to know where they come from, and that's what those hit makers over, the Scandinavian hit makers that take the pop music and process it into something that. There's a lot of you can't keep down raw milk, but most of you can keep down sweetened milk, So you got to take that raw milk and sweeten it up and pasteurize it and homogenize it, and then you can just digest it. You don't care what it's about. You like to think about what you might like to think what it's about, but it's just product, right? It's just content. And so a lot of these hot takes, some of which are just generated by editors after somebody has created the initial heading on it, the initial headline, or some of it, written by me, when somebody else has got their name slapped on it, like Miss Piggy's a domestic abuser, right? That's a hot take, right? Who gives a shit, right? It's just words. You just want to see if that can get published. You don't want to put your own, nom de plume on there, but you want to see if you can get that out there. And the public has reached a point with takes and content and all of that where it could all be written theoretically. I think it could be written by 10 people in a warehouse in Grand Prairie, Texas. Give me an office park, some LED lights that you never have to change, 4 tables, a few laptops, shitty ones, Chromebooks. You only need Google Docs, and I will give you 10 magazines a month. I'll give you all the magazines. We'll make up all the quotes. We'll make up all the take topics. I'll create a staff of thousands of people. They'll all get verified on Twitter. And just somebody give me money for that. Like a venture capitalist wants to make money running a low budget media operation like Vox 2.0. Well, give it to me, and I'll call it like Subvox, it's like a secret voice, and I'll just run it. But you'll get all the takes that you want at a fraction of the cost. You'll even get all the writers that you want, except it'll just be a couple random college students typing dictation.
This is what I love about Bateman. He calls the shot so often. He's put out multiple. I just saw you did another one about nerds and experts or whatever, where you write. You say everything I write is bullshit. This is just for money. I don't care about any of it. And then these people, they come back for seconds. They get you to write another hot take article about whatever. I love that because for one thing, that's amazing. But two, it shows that they don't give a shit either. They're not even pretending anymore that what they're doing is important. They're just ordering a bag of feed from the Bateman Ranch.
That's right, Merrick. You hit the nail on the head there. I can probably for the last year and a half have just exclusively just been throwing fastballs down the middle on Twitter about what it is that I do. Literally, using Splice Today, Russ Smith's Splice Today, to write essay after essay explaining how the sausage gets made. and all I do is to just get there are more readers. I sell more mainstream stuff. It comes out.
Atlantic, what's up?
Yeah. They asked me to do the last. I don't like working with them, but I'll do it. They had me just do a thing in, I think, like October 2019. They were like, "You want to do a story on like what it's like to be a Jack guy in 2019?" And I was like, "All right, well, I'm going to do this." But I kept out, every mention of like cis this and mediocre white men that. No one will ever notice that unless they read that piece. But I didn't let one of those things trickle in. Sold it, got paid, and moved on. Like, that's the other thing I do. So, like, if you read my mainstream content, I keep all this garbage out of it. Like, there's no references to Trump, all this trash that makes it very time sensitive. I always hated that in political sketches on SNL and stuff.
Exactly.
They're like stale dated a week later.
Yeah, so, Monica Lewinsky. So.
Toxic masculinity. That's another thing. Like, they want to push that into every article that you write. And I let it creep into a few from 2015 and 16 when I was freelancing just full time. And I'm like, I can't believe that I saw how that happened. And I was like, I can't let that ever happen again. I mean, I could talk about, how it affects, like what masculinity is, but I'm not going to spell it out. I'm not going to use that buzzword. That's just gaslighting. That's another one. Never use that term in an article, but
I think the key here is what you said about making sausage. It's like hot dogs. Everybody knows that they're gross. Everybody knows what they put in hot dogs, but people still buy hot dogs. So I think that in the end we're going to consume the hot takes. We're going to.
That's an even better reference because like you can get the hot dogs that are 50 cents at the Piggly Wiggly, or you can get the hot dogs that are $9 and like cured, no preservatives at the Whole Foods, but they're still hot dogs. You're still eating shit. You're eating like noses and snouts and stuff ground up into some kind of paste and rolled in a casing. It still sucks. But they're good. At the end of the day, like you watch the takes just roll by, get on Twitter, and you can. I've often said, and you guys have seen this, like that you don't need to read the takes. You just need to feel them. Get on Twitter. You can load up the TweetDeck application if you want to do this faster, tweetdeck.twitter.com, and just watch the freaking takes and opinions roll by. And gradually, you just start feeling where I call them the take winds. You can feel where the take winds are blowing you.
Yeah, I did this for like a month. I stopped looking at that Twitter, and I was basically just talking to Bog Beef and Thoughton. And then it was like when I flipped it back on about a week ago, it was amazing. There's this whole ecosystem that I'd totally forgotten about. Just people saying absolutely insane things.
But none of these takes exist out. Like when you unplug like you did, you might never hear of some of these takes.
No, hell no.
It takes a lot to get a take out to the mainstream. Like the one take that has really crept out into the mainstream from 2016 to now is that like Bernie supporters are mean on Twitter, whatever that means. But that take it's the first take I've seen. That and gaslighting. I think gaslighting kind of got out there, but those are things that crept out. And I'm finally hearing them, but I still don't hear them from many people. Like I still could turn off the CNN and I wouldn't hear that from most folks. I don't think it, but you get to see when you get on Twitter, it's inescapable. You start getting hit by all the takes. Like some writer will say something and maybe it's fat phobic, and then someone else will say something about that writer in response, and that's homophobic. And then you've got degrees of stuff that are in play, and you really can't just sort of weigh this stuff out in any kind of reasonable way. But it's beautiful. The Atlantic actually has an article this month. Not that I want to claim to read anything. I try never to tell people I read anything. There's an article in the March 2020 Atlantic about this Texas abortion rights activist who I happen to know. That's all I'll say about that. But I guess she probably concocted some story about getting together with a famous black abortion doctor, and it was a lot of nonsense, but she was able to build a rumor mill of stuff about this poor guy who was pretty committed to doing abortions in like poor states where they didn't have much access, to the point where until this year, he was really buried and mostly out of work and out of the abortion movement. Like, she was able to build up a critical mass of people believing that he got women drunk and then had sex with them. Now, he was a single guy.
Jesus.
The single guy. He got married like last year. He's a single guy. The story she told, it's on Medium, was like she got real drunk. He was only drinking tonic water because he's not a drinker. And then they agreed, she propositioned him, and then they had sex. And that was the story, but it was enough to blast him out of the movement because he was obviously, pulling a Trump. Trump doesn't drink, so now we should be suspicious of people who don't drink. They're obviously strategically trying to get one over on you. That's like an insane take, but I love it. I love that take.
He's doing the work.
This thing got 5,000 words in the Atlantic, so.
Mission accomplished, right?
And the writer was really skeptical of the story. Couldn't come out and say that it was nonsense because you got to believe women and all this other stuff that's out there right now. But it was just nonsense.
Reminds me of the Jackie story.
I was thinking
I don't even know if we need to rehash that, but I just remember reading that, and I got to the part where they took her to a room where they had covered the floor in broken glass and that was when I checked out of that story.
Yeah, that's way too much work for a frat, right?
Yeah. I was thinking about this because, if you listen to this or present company here, this is how it goes. And there was The Verge. They're in this business, right? We're slinging the takes. They at some point, one of the managers there, they grabbed one of the interns. They said, "Hey, we need to take these gamer stuff is hot. PCs are hot. You're a pro gamer now, and go flip on the camera and show how to build a pro gamer computer." The guy's like, I want to write, and they're like, well, here you go. You're writing. You're a pro gamer now too, and so they throw him in the room, and he films this video, and he's like, this is how you build a badass computer, and he has no idea what he's doing. He's just plugging stuff into random things. It's catching on fire. It's just but the music keeps going. They just roll flip to flip. Hey, this is the Corsair fan. You're gonna want to check this out. You're gonna want to need this for if you want to get the most kills and stuff. And it got out there. Computers. They're still like you could only, for a long time, the only people using in the old all this stuff, internet and email, it was all there, like in the in the 80s and stuff. But you had to look like George R.R. Martin to access it.
You had to use a personal computer. You had to understand IRQ and stuff like that. It was, remember how, if you're old enough, you can remember how much of a pain in the ass it was to get anything to run on a computer. You had to go in and fuck around with configuration files and
you had to know how to use the disk operating system. It was that's what I came up on, that and typewriters. So and the people that the R.R. Martin hobbyists were putting their own boards together on computers and stuff. They were soldering stuff. It was a lot of those people came out of the ham radio tradition, and it was a weird little clique. It wasn't even those connotations were even there going into the 90s, because people had dial-up, but it sucked, so it didn't really benefit the masses.
That's right. But so those guys they're still there, and they're still and they still run a lot of these magazines. And so if you ever seen one of these PC magazines, I don't know if they're still hanging on, but they're just you're looking at this and you're like, who thinks about shit? The biggest one, they have a video that online that's 2 hours, and it's all the things that they do to control their tests of a CPU cooler. And it's more time was spent on the space shuttle. So those people are out there, right? And so someone sent one of these old coots that video, and it's in terms of the PC writing realm or whatever, because it's totally separate. They went nuts. They're filing lawsuits. There's people
filing lawsuits for what?
They're like, this is like illegal to put out information. Like you can't, because they're not hip to it. They're like they have no idea. They've been in a cocoon surrounded by like Jolt Cola and
Funyuns,
for 40 years they're like the papers are publishing stuff like this. This is incorrect stuff, and going nuts. And they're just like, hey man, look, it ain't like that no more, dude. Chill out.
Didn't this exact thing happen like 4 or 5 years ago? But it was a lady they had doing it, and it became a huge scandal in the whatever magazine. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Vaguely.
Now you're making me think that they knew it was going to happen.
Maybe basically it's the same story that happened years ago, but it was a lady, and so they were able to fold it in with hot takes about misogyny and stuff.
The takes begat the takes. Yeah, hell yeah.
It's like Bateman said. Can you imagine going up to a person in the street and you talk and just discussing like misogynoir or however you say? Has anyone ever said that in words like out loud?
I mean, outside of an academic like seminar or something, probably not. I mean, within those, the takes merge with the scholarship, and it's like mother's milk. This kind of just a world of make work, but. In terms of people actually, you can have a high-level job, you can be making a good income, and you'll never hear any of this stuff. It'll never cross your path. You might even know a lot about something, but you'll never know about that topic. Gaslighting might never be words that are on your lips.
I was just thinking of what Bob was talking about, like the old DOS games. Just imagine one of those big cardboard box video games, misogynoir. It's a point-and-click adventure.
But that's actually probably the frame of reference most people would have. That's it. I think they'd be from like Sierra Games, and it'd be from the maker of Maniac Mansion, and like Leisure Suit Larry's trying to get with some woman or something. That's why it'd be called misogynoir. You guys remember those games? Like Leisure Suit Larry used to just like they could make these games in the late 80s and 90s. The guy just would. The whole point of the game was just to get with women in an offensive way, and it kept making sequels of this.
That game had copyright protection, but instead of like a code in the book, it was a copy protection to make sure you were old enough to play the game, and it would ask you like questions about the Beatles and stuff in the 70s.
I like when games had this. I think a lot of guys miss it. I respect it. Like there was this period where games could just be totally amoral, like Head Chopper Deluxe, and it's just you go through the mall and like an overhead view, and you just chop heads. There's no real story, no content. You're just blood, just piles of blood. Or they could be games like Leisure Suit Larry, and there's just no content to them. And it was just a great, like we used to have like World War I. We could put all the useless males in the trenches and burn them off, like charge the doughboys, at the Germans or something like that, and they get mowed down. But back in the late 90s, you could put them in front of there, and they could play Leisure Suit Larry and Head Chopper. And they would,
I'm sorry,
they were kept out of view.
Can you look at the group DM, Bateman, that we?
Oh wow!
Look at the forearms on Ken Williams there.
What the?
There's the people who invented like King's Quest.
Yeah, the dude who wrote Leisure Suit Larry, he could bench 350.
Yeah, that's a man's man. That's a good mustache too. He's got.
Hell yeah.
Is he there with Roberta Williams?
That's right.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, that's the thing. Roberta Williams doesn't get enough credit. She was there, part of that horrible mix of stuff, and women involved in that at the beginning. Like Centipede, that video game was made by a woman. Like I don't know. Like we forget that stuff. But yeah, that guy is loaded for bear right there. He's got a heck of a haircut too.
Yeah, he looks ready to job to Ric Flair or something.
That's right. He'll roll out, he'll bounce, he'll hit the ropes a couple times, and then he'll take a clothesline and get put in the figure 4 and collect his $50.
Speaking of, I saw Snake Man was trending. And I was like, oh, well, I guess he's dead. But
No, he's back. That's going to be a story for me next week or the week after that. Like, what are all these old wrestlers doing in the AEW? I love it.
man, I saw the clip. And he's in the ring yelling at some guy. I have no idea who it is.
Cody Rhodes. He was yelling at Cody Rhodes. He called him Caesar or something.
So Dusty Rhodes' son or something.
Yeah, who now has a neck tattoo. He got I thought it was like a glue-on, but he got not a tattoo that wraps around the neck either, like a snake or something around the neck. He got a regular tattoo just on the side of his neck, so it's stretched out and over, and you'd have to look at it to figure out, like closely, to figure out what the hell's going on.
That's there's people, there's like philosophers right now writing about face and neck tattoos with respect to SoundCloud rappers. The idea is that you can't sell anything on SoundCloud unless you have tats on your face.
You got to be like Lil Peep.
That's right.
I've seen pictures of these guys, and is this still a thing where it's like you're demonstrating to people that you like, I'm never going to try to get a job at Costco or whatever because my face looks like this so clearly.
This is one of the big problems of the age. I talked about this with a right winger once, and where they have like this like permanent problem, right? So that if you voted like David Duke or something to go to Washington for you, and he's going to carry out his stuff for you. Well, let's say once he packed up from the double wide headed down to D.C., there's the incentives for carrying out the ethno state diminish greatly, right?
Yeah.
There's no way you could get anyone to do it. So they spend all their time, and this is one of the things that's been floated. It's like if we could get a guy that just straight up just fucking had a swastika on his forehead. Like
he's got nowhere else to go. So,
right.
Yeah.
The CEO of Nabisco would never pick up that phone. You know what I mean? There would be no way for him to betray us. But yeah, that's it's one. Yeah, if you want a trustworthy man, if you want to find a trustworthy man, you need a guy with a swastika on his forehead.
And if you could like farm a group of people like that as voters or whatever, they'd never betray you because they can't, because if they do, they're out in the cold.
This face tattoo stuff is so big that like there's this guy returning from a drug suspension or something. This guy returning from suspension in the UFC this week, Sean O'Malley or whatever, this fighter from Helena, Montana, and like the big selling point from him is that he's got face tattoos, big hair and face tattoos, and they're like he really appeals to a new emerging core demographic of MMA.
Anything that it's like anything that modernity can find that's got any juice to it. The face tattoo, it had some juice to it. You know what I mean? In the 90s, it's like that dude in the grocery store has a face tattoo. I'm going to keep my distance. You never know what a guy like that could do.
Yeah.
Anything like that that's got a little bit of fire to it. We just squeeze it like a bar rack, get every dollar we can out of it.
Do you remember that movie Go from like 2000? This is how quickly this happened. There was Timothy Oliphant is in that movie, and his character has a neck tattoo. It's like a little neck tattoo.
Isn't that from the same director as Swingers, or some of the same people, or something like that? It was a carryover. I know Favreau was Swingers. I don't know who did Go, but I remember it was like the same generation of film.
It wasn't Favreau. I can't remember who it was.
But I find out who that was. I do remember that. That was like in that like run of like hip movies, like hip indie-ish movies where we're dropping left and right. Now Oliphant looks like Sam Water or like Sam Neill or whatever. Not Sam Neill? What's his face? Sam Elliott.
He went over the ledge pretty fast.
He's aged not quite like a fine wine.
Yeah, it's directed by Doug Liman.
Oh yeah, that dude. I think if you click on that, I think that dude.
Yeah, he did. He did Swingers. You're right. The Bourne movies.
The Bourne movies were his big thing, and like he was like a hip, like quick cut director. Like that's what the kids liked back then, the hipsters. You know, they didn't want to watch a frame for more than 30 seconds.
There's a question about this. I'd like to ask you, Oliver. So connecting these together, we got the takes, we got the celebrities. You know, there's a more than a fair amount of these fucking the Hollywood celebrities that are on Twitter. They're doing the same shit that we're doing. Everybody's doing. They're getting up and they're firing off hot takes. And look at this, what this asshole said today. James Woods posts all day.
Yeah, he's a busy man. He's like the George Takei of Twitter. You remember that guy? That guy could try to squeeze blood from the stone of a really mediocre role. God bless him.
James Woods is a star of John Carpenter's Vampires.
Oh, yeah, and Diggstown with Louis Gossett Jr. as an unscrupulous boxing promoter trying to get an African-American dude to fight for him in a small town. Yeah, James Woods is a busy man. He took the John Voight model of going all in on true republicanism, and he just put it on Twitter.
We talked about this before. We couldn't come up with anything. It's like you were in Casino.
Yeah, pretty decent role there. Scumbag.
You know, he posts he'll post pictures. He'll post here's my Porsche. Yeah, I live in Beverly Hills. I got a shitload of money. I'm a movie star. This is okay. What the fuck are you doing on Twitter, dog? Like, we ain't got shit better to do.
Okay, let me make the argument here. He's in his 70s, right? Like, if you're living your life as a person who's going to live to be in your 80s or 90s as an actor and not all fucked up on drinking and drugs, then I could see why he would be hanging out at home tweeting,
This is his lifeline at this point. I mean,
this is how old people are supposed to be. By the way, they used to write letters to the newspaper.
Well, my dad
he's doing what you're supposed to do.
I mean, my dad would send me there's that email archive I've got. He'd send me 10, 15 emails a day, that I put online. If he had Twitter and could have gotten an audience for some of his crazy thoughts, about blood moons or this sort of thing, then yeah, it would have just been gotten him it would have been the juice that he needs, if it's not cocaine when you're 70, you need that quick hit. You need that quick hit of a notification. James Woods can post a picture of
you should
Madonna. If Madonna lives to be James Woods' age, she won't do that. I'm sure she'll be doing other stuff. But this is we've forgotten how old famous people are, how a normal old person acts because we're so used to these. Look at Paul McCartney or Mick Jagger. That's not how you're rooted.
Well,
that's
Paul
not
McCartney's
the model.
Paul McCartney's trying to be youthful, but he looks like he's melted. He looks like an old lesbian school teacher or something at this stage in his life.
That's sad, dude. It's
you got to take some of those essays your dad wrote about the blood moon and ship them into the cut.
They've been featured in major publications. Medium's publication Matter did a whole piece on them that was pretty decent, but then they forced me to put Trump in there, and that ruined it. They formatted him, put him in a magazine, even all this stuff. But Trump had to be in the article. I'm like, no, fucking, I don't want Trump in that. He didn't give a shit about Trump. It's just something I have to hear about for the next 10 years. It's like how everybody was talking about the new kids on the block, and then they went away. They're gone. I don't need to hear about Trump.
You know what? This is what we do. In the old country, over in Italy and stuff, they take these old guys, they throw them on a bench all day.
Yeah. They can feed the pigeons and feed the birds, and talk about how the water was higher back then, or lower, whatever it may be. We're not. I do think it's going to be weird. I think it's weirder when an old person clings to youth. That's what Madonna's going to be doing in her 90s.
Yeah.
She's going to still be doing a Super Bowl halftime show, and people will be like, she looks so youthful. And, there'll be something some kind of uncanny valley youthfulness about whatever's going on with her. Vince McMahon has this too, this kind of uncanny valley rotting inside your own flesh while pumped up on steroids youthfulness. Stallone has it. Your face is melting, turning purple, but you still got abs. That's weird.
Well, hey, you just put out another nice piece the other day about how Mr. Joseph whatever Biden.
Oh yeah, Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a piece I did in 2018, but I reran it because I was like, people got to think about how Joe
It's
has
evergreen.
People should reread that. It's all about how Joe Biden, while getting steroids classified as controlled substances in '89, has fake teeth, fake hair, fake tan. And he Joe Biden used the best performance enhancers of all time throughout his career, which was just lying. That is the healthiest, safest form of performance enhancer, to just go out and I did some sit-ins with Martin Luther King. No, you didn't. Well, I might have misspoken. But the media did report that for 3 years, and I won that election, so it's all good. I used to go out with Mousy and Chops and the boys. All the black guys in Wilmington, Delaware like me. No, those people didn't exist. Well, I might have misspoken. I like to exaggerate when I'm talking, but I always tell the truth.
What's so off-putting about when he does it is that he's doing it and he's pretending that he's either telling the truth or I misremember.
That's only that. I misspoke or exaggerated. I do that when I talk. Well, when are you not doing it then? Like when you're silent?
Compare that to Trump. He'll just say something and he forgets about it the second it leaves his mouth. He doesn't care.
And it's always stuff that, with Trump, it's irrelevant. Like he'll say, I own the tallest building in the world. And we'll just move on from that. It doesn't mean anything. Nobody could throw a fastball faster than me. Okay. I hit a golf ball 500 yards. But you just know that it's not. He just says it in a way. It's in a stream of all these things I'm the best on Saudi Arabia. What is that?
I think he believes that every time he says that stuff. I think he believes
I think there's some part of his mind where it's all, if it's not true or false, he believes that he's saying it. He believes he believes in what he's saying, even if it's I'm the best on Saudi Arabia. Because a lot of what he says aren't facts; they're superlatives. I'm the best at hitting the golf ball. You can believe that.
You know how many sets of the greatest hits in the world I've said I've seen. It's people like to hear that kind of stuff. It's fine.
Exactly. This is like something you would hear from, some cheap barbarian chief. It hits a note in your brain. It's like, this is an archetype of humanity that I can recognize.
That's exactly right. That kind of barbarian bragging grew into American advertising language, and we love it. Get stains out the fastest. What does that mean? Cleanest shine, shiniest shoes, biggest, best, newest. World's greatest cat food.
That's why those weird ads they did last year with the teach your boys to do better, and that it felt so un-American because the ads telling you that you're a piece of shit, and that's not what we sign up for. What do the people say about Americans? That we have this idea of American exceptionalism. I say in the last 20 or 30 years, that became almost a pejorative. I don't think that works. You're not going to be able to suppress that aspect of human behavior, and you probably shouldn't want to.
Hey, I make T-bone steaks. It's the best damn steak you've ever had.
Oh, it could be the best. Exactly. Nobody makes eggs like me.
Now contrast that with I make steaks, I guess, but I don't have all the opportunities that French chefs do. So what do you want to hear?
The problem with the only thing Americans don't like is when you lie and it's in the service of you being a truth teller and it's a verifiable fact. I got 6 Purple Hearts.
Yeah.
And you didn't have any. You're going to be out of that election. But you could say nobody is more heroic than me, and that's fine. We're totally cool with that. And American exceptionalism, a lot of it has to do with American positivity. The culture, despite all the fear mongering on the national news, is positive. I mean, we'll support lower tax rates on the top 1% in that rate bracket because we think we're going to win the lottery. There's not many other cultures where that many folks think they can win the lottery. That's a heck of a lot of positivity.
Yeah, Europeans have always kind of held that against us too. This idea that we're just not naive or
always smiling. They don't like that either. But I smile all the time. I'm pretty positive.
Russians and a lot of Russians always do that. They have this speech about how people think you're something's wrong, you're retarded if you're in Moscow and you go around smiling at people. It's like
That's true. I was there, and it is weird. They don't do it.
it's
great.
like, or especially people in European countries say that. It's like, well yeah, dude, like we got all kinds of different people here, dog. 'Cause you gotta you can't be stanced up running around here because we all got work to do, and we all ain't exactly the same. So these rituals develop, and you might can it's like anything else that's like the implicit versus the explicit.
Yeah, what was the most famously polite part of the United States?
The South is the most, because there's always
The
feuding.
part where people would
feuds.
have a gunfight with you if you pissed them off.
But that's, my dad taught me this too. Like, you walk through a bar or something, like, for me, I don't want to go to jail, so I constantly say, excuse me, over and over again. I don't want to have any altercations, and that's a very American thing. Like, because the South is notable for that. You want to be out gouging somebody's eye out or pulling pistols if you don't smile? No, a smile is a small thing. It disarms people. Like, it helps people. It helps a diverse culture sort of fit together. And I found even in Europe, like, if you're smiling and pleasant, it does eventually, people will get along with you. Like, it works. It's tied in with all that American buy our best bath soap, best cat litter. I mean, shit, eventually people will start believing that.
I think that's it. And the flip side of this, I think, because I think you could explain it with the reverse here, because there's this, everyone's known this big phenomenon. It's a lot of people have seen this now, the soy face, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's seen that. So there's this face that people, and part of it is determining, like, okay, who does make this face? Is it, were they making that face in middle school, or do guys in the factory make that face? No, I think the proof is that that face is it's their extreme signaling that I'm not
a threat.
I'm not a threat. I am not going. You don't need to call HR.
That is exactly right, and that's why the only way you can deal with those people in a professional context is to smile and move on and have minimal interaction so that nothing happens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That you want to avoid feuds and duels the same way you did in, like, Richmond, Virginia in 1860. It's just this time, you want to get the pronouns right. Whatever you got to do to just get the hell out of there and keep it. Because there's no need to fight with anybody. I don't go online and fight with people over this nonsense. But you have to follow their rules of decorum. Now, they mainly fight with each other, which is the other helpful thing. They'll occasionally get an outsider, but mostly the internal battles. They're like trying to get each other fired from the nonprofit or the university, this type of thing. They're bringing each other down left. It's crazy. I'm glad I don't work in that world anymore. It's scary.
I think I would support them if the outcome was if they tried to cancel you, they had to meet you in, like, an island in the Potomac River, and both of you came healed, like you're in Tombstone. Then I would get behind them then if that had to happen.
Well, that's why the South handled it better, in the sense that, like, it was a dueling, or for the poorer people, an eye gouging country. Like, to have to cancel somebody in person is a rough one. Nobody wants to do that. This is, we've built a lot of structures, northern creations of, like, American puritanical thinking to avoid face-to-face shunning. This way you got the apparatus of the state or the government or whatever, or the bureaucracy you're working for.
Yeah, that's the New England model there.
Yeah, very, very easy. You don't even know what hit you, but suddenly you're a witch and you're gone.
There's two Americas. There's the New England, Plymouth colony America, and there's the Jamestown America. And Jamestown America is the real America. And there's no question about that in my mind whatsoever. Because if you compare the two colonies, how they began and what happened, like, in the 20 years after they were founded, Jamestown is America 100%.
Oh, I mean, as a historian, agreed. I mean, it was just we're just going to improvise. Everybody's going to starve. Then we're going to make it work.
We're going to start eating each other.
We luck into some kind of cash crop, and then we just run and gun from right there. And then everything else just kind of falls in, whereas, New England, these tight units, careful policing of people's opinions. people coming over in twos instead of in ones. You know, like the American way is is what grew up in Virginia and what became West Virginia and pushed out west. I mean, this country's an improvised mess. That's what it is.
All these guys in waistcoats and like pantaloons and James Devers. Hey, we forgot to bring any women.
Yeah, you're gonna have to figure that one out.
It's gonna be a problem, guys.
Yeah, we mainly got nobles and prisoners here right now.
My manservant doesn't know jack shit about growing tobacco.
Yeah, gonna have to make it work.
I was thinking about this the other day because with the Puritans and stuff, because people were talking like, yeah, everyone keeps running. It doesn't like, I don't think that I could be wrong. I do not. I have had people I've had communists and fascists and people of all kinds of extreme ideologies tell me that the WASPs are running the show still, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, if I was Cotton Mather in 2020, right? I am a Puritan. That mindset. I don't know if any of your history work looked at any of that, but I was thinking about there's no fucking way they would let something like Instagram happen.
They would shut that stuff down. I mean, that's a way of showing, like, you know, sumptuary laws in the colonies were a big thing, especially in the northern colonies. Like, you're not going to be on there showing off your rings and your bling and your makeup and any of that stuff. That was one thing the U.S. was kind of united on. Nobody was going to just be like vamping. We were always kind of, I mean, the Western world as a whole, like there might have been a few monarchies that became decadent or noble societies that became decadent. But for the most part, like most communities, polities, groups, religious leaders would not have tolerated a selfie culture.
I think what you need to keep in mind whenever you see people who are dissident, either right or left, talking about Puritans and Protestants, they're never talking about the thing. If someone left, Protestant is a way for leftists to talk shit about poor people without directly doing it. And on the right, it's their way of complaining about the people they call the trad cons. None of that stuff is on the level.
Almost none of I know at least with the Anglican Church, like they don't even have any seminaries left. No one goes to those churches up north. Like all of them right now are splitting on gay marriage and female pastors.
The Methodist Church just did that too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the nature of Protestantism. It's by design, decentralized, and that has its benefits and it has its problems. But again, when people are talking about, they're not actually talking about the thing. They're using it as a proxy. Like all that shit that Moldbug wrote about progressivism being a form of Protestantism, it's bullshit.
If there was like that would be like it would be hilarious if it was. And I always think like, what if there was like there's a smoky room with like Constance Weatherbury and all these like a bunch of I was gonna say well, I guess the locations are still the same. It's still Harvard, and it's still Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, we hit on this with Dave a little bit, but we didn't go into it because
I think it's
like this is an aspect of, and Bateman said it the last time he was here, this is an aspect of humanity. People get like this, especially when you're at the tail end of an empire. So of course that these like Unitarian whatever people would adopt these beliefs. That's what people always do, and to do what. To blame like this is an aspect of that is putting
what they're doing is like pruning Puritanism or Protestantism for a few features that could just be features of a specific culture. Like the religious worldview encapsulated a lot of what would be called social conservatism that at the end of the day is absent now, is gone. A certain kind of community conservatism that's long gone. Like it's ahistorical to talk about it that way.
You brought up Pelagius last time.
Yes, yeah. I mean, well, there's going to be this type of. I mean, there was a crisis at the end of the Roman Empire when people are trying to think about what the future is going to hold. I mean, again, generalizing here because that's not my PhD's in legal history, but
we're just bullshitting. Don't cover that.
I'm just falling back into old ways there, but like at the end of the empire, there people are scrambling to figure out what's coming next. are we sinful and fallen? Are we all going to be redeemed in the end? Does sin exist? Does it not? What are we supposed to do? There's a sexual panic that's going on, like a celibacy, what we need, or like like there's a feud between like Saint Jerome, big push on celibacy, and then Pelagius, who had no problem hanging out with women in Rome. I mean, there's so many competing worldviews as they try to piece together the problems of what is essentially just a combination of like plague, depopulation, population movements across borders, things that are out of their control. They're trying to slap some kind of cause solution alternative to on. And I mean, of course, the rich people like Jerome and like all the old women that kept him rolling, they're pumping money into these kind of weird cultural solutions, chastity, building monasteries, living in caves in the desert, sitting on top of pillars, wearing chains, this type of weird, earlier on getting just straight up martyred, this type of stuff. They can't. And I think here at the end of whatever's happening here. And I mean, the end of Rome was also really just tied to recurrent plagues that led to pretty major depopulation, which must have been really demoralizing. I think we're experiencing the same thing right now. Like, I think we're experiencing, I mean, in addition to an actual, world, or at least a panic over what is probably an overblown world flu, we're 50 billion people are going to be infected. It's going to reach Mars in 2021.
I was thinking the same thing, and there's no way to know how serious this coronavirus is because the media has every reason to blow it up, and then
they got to bill it like the Super Bowl. It's an ongoing.
The government has every reason to minimize it so it doesn't fuck around with trade. So we should go back to the default state, which is you just don't believe anything anybody tells you.
You just got to watch what's happening in your community. What's going on with people? I mean, there's nothing else you can do in that scenario. You're absolutely right. Like the combination, and that's not just this government, but like every government has and unless the media is totally state controlled, like it's got the desire to just blow it out of proportion, make a Super Bowl out of it. Like there's some tweet storm from some researcher that's gone viral about like 50 million people getting infected, 500 million as a best case. This kind of nonsense. Like that's somebody building clout off a tweet storm about this freaking thing. Like, come on! Like, you have to use your own. That's a situation where you got to act carefully. I mean, I knock on wood, haven't been sick much since sick at all since 2016, really. But I've worked remotely since 2016 as well. Like I pulled in the fences. I knew where the world. I knew.
Bateman saw the coronavirus coming, guys.
Yeah, I built a freaking gym and bunker in my basement. Like I know what. I don't need to be out there. That's the thing with me. Like, that's something I don't know if I talk about it a lot on Twitter, but like, I'm out of the house like 20, 30, 40 times a year, if that.
How many kilos of rice do you have in the basement?
Mainly beans. I'm not a rice man. It's tons and tons of bean cans. Beans are where it's at.
High in protein.
Black beans, pinto, garbanzo, those are all good. You can just eat them out of the can if you need to. Don't even need to cook them.
Even though we've passed, I want to cover my ass and just say, for what I said about the Protestant stuff, go look at the time frame Bateman's talking about, like around the time of after Constantine. Just look at the African church. They were having the same kind of arguments. You can't trace it back to the single source. We always want to do that. We love the idea that, like the coronavirus, you can find the original patient and you can diagnose the problem. But this is not. This is like a society aging, and we're looking at the symptoms of an extremely old empire.
And there's features and symptoms in different examples. So, like, this is an example, where you can find some features that are that fit along with what we're seeing today. I mean, it's not as easy as history repeats itself. It's just that sometimes similar feelings of dread or concern, generational anxieties, you might be able to dig in and find another scenario where these things are playing out too. And people, we're only human. There's only so many different ways we're going to respond to things emotionally. And we're going to take those emotions and try to turn them into certain types of what we think are rational thoughts. And they're going to come out along those lines. Now, our world, our dress, our everything will be very different, but some of those thought
That's
ways.
one of
the same.
the biggest mistakes people make is that we treat the past and people from the past like they were like lesser evolved creatures, but they're not. They were people like us.
Yeah, you might find like Farmer Junius out there working his water mill in like 200 AD, and there might be a lot of accumulated knowledge in that computer of a brain. Just not, he might not know to wash his hands after eating raw meat. He might be like squeezing the turd out of the pig's rear end or something like that, and then just eating lunch. But he might know a hell of a lot otherwise.
The most sensible thing I've ever read is is Julius Caesar's diaries. And I used to talk about Julius Caesar a lot, especially with I still do with Thoughton and Mark, and so Thoughton just started to send me every single academic paper that came out. There's this same paper that comes out like every 2 weeks, and it was dry. She was trying to drive me insane, get me to check into asylum or something. And it's like there's just a billion of these papers, and every paper is like, we really need to. It's sort of like that thing that's like, America needs to have a real conversation about race once in a while.
Would that be nice for a change?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, we need to just shoot straight on that. Every single paper is like, what people really have been avoiding this whole time is really putting the things Julius Caesar said in a context. Not all of this was 100,000% correct. And, and all the things that they're talking about, it's things that any person with half a brain can sort between, like, okay, this is sort of like a moral claim here. This is, people tend to exaggerate stuff like that. It's all super basic, and they don't fucking ever write one about Cicero. They're just the fucking in the anti-Semitic slumlord. Just shoot it right into my veins. That's just beautiful. But they just write the same fucking paper about the shit Caesar wrote over and over and over again.
I mean, Cicero's kind of detached, even though he was a public figure and all that. He's kind of detached from, like, in their opinion, like he's. I think in the minds of like some commentators who aren't like classical specialists. Like, I think he's detached from having a real life and a real role the way Caesar, who accomplished much more,
he is them.
Is thought to have.
Cicero is their fucking patron saint.
Cicero's like I wouldn't say a Joe Biden. He's like
he's a Matt Iglesias.
Like
he's a weasel.
That's what.
Well, Matt Iglesias could never be a consul or anything like that, or never do any type of government. Matt Iglesias is a little too soft for that. Maybe a level above that. Maybe a David Frum.
Fair enough. But there are people who really wanted to sit in the big chair. And also, so much stuff that Cicero wrote came down. That's part of the reason why academics love him so much, because just like a lot of his shit survived.
Oh, yeah, that's the whole case with all of it. I'd love to have the whole volume.
Yeah, if another clay pot full of scrolls fell down into the water, then we wouldn't know anything about. We would know very little about Cicero. And who was it? Is it Ingalls that said he was like one of the
greatest criminal of all history?
I mean, he was a plutocrat, a minor plutocrat for his age. A wannabe, a striver, a government official, invested in the status quo. Unlike Caesar, who genuinely shook shit up for good or bad.
This reminds me of I've seen this written about 2 or 3 times, and I think it's true that whatever, let's say that there's like a cosmic left and right tendency that exists in the world. It's kind of thing like, well, I don't know if that applies perfectly. Okay, so let's just say I can't read Latin, but everyone that can read Latin they either say like I couldn't stand. Everyone knows when you start out reading Latin, they start out with Caesar because he has a very masculine voice in Latin. Who, what, when, where, why.
Yeah.
But then once you get going, the highest, supposedly the greatest Latin writer of all time is Cicero, and he's weaving. He's cranking the takes, man. He knows how to weave.
Oh yeah, o tempora, o mores, that type of stuff. Like people love. That's it. He was the one that was calling out the bad actors in local government in beautiful speeches. I mean, yeah, he was the high point. But yeah, I mean, being so, I think that's a really good point. Being so far removed from it, how can we tell that was the most beautiful style? I'd rather read like a Jim Thompson or, Raymond Chandler novel than freaking James Joyce.
That's right. But just going with this thing, so there was this theory somebody had once that basically there's certain tendency. We'll just say left for the moment that. There's just this because it works for modernity now. The left has a worship of people who can spin a phrase, and
oh yeah, a bunch of them.
There was they used an example. There was a couple of these guys in the '70s that were like they bounced around the political act circuit. They could spin a phrase, but they were G.G. Allen level personal destructive. They're just very just horrible people. And we always talk about Nick Land. Nick Land was a left wing Marxist guy. He became a raging right winger. They still write books constantly, still write papers constantly. They're just lamenting they lost this guy. And Nick Land's because Nick Land can turn a phrase. That's one thing he can do. He might be a bad guy, all these things, but he can turn he's like a drug addict, lives in Hong Kong. He's got all these evil beliefs. But there's lots of these where it's like, even like no matter what this, let me go to a better example. Mao could turn a phrase, right? This man's a poet. And there's to this day, there's Mark Ames. I think him and Warner, they kind of low key are like, they've got that. And the contrast is the right wing. Have you ever seen the book sales, the right wing? It's like people like Michelle Malkin and who's the We'll Do It?
Dinesh D'Souza.
Yeah, who's the We'll Do It Live guy?
Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, they don't give a shit. They'll buy 10 billion of the books. They don't care. Who cares? They don't. They're not this. If they like you, they'll buy your book. Whereas on the left wing, even if they don't like you, if you can spin a phrase, come on, man, we'd really love to have you. You know what I mean? Is that a thing?
And they get upset when you do defect, like, oh, we're losing him, we're losing so and so to the alt-right. That was a big thing. Like, oh, is this guy leaning alt-right? It's a shame. He used to write such good hot takes for Vice.
That's right. With our friends, I know. I guess Freddie DeBoer is coming out with a book again. But
they've broken him on multiple occasions. Like he's like a frequent target of the likes of Noah Berlatsky.
That's right. Yeah, they have. It's like our guest said last week. When you, it doesn't feel fun to rebel against. It doesn't feel fun to actually be a rebel.
No, I mean DeBoer's had a lot of ups and downs, mental problems. I guess he got Me Too'd or something. I don't know. Like, he's kept plugging forward though.
That's right.
Yeah, he has like a blog or something where he'll post up and then delete it like a day later. I love that, the concept.
I'll tell you though, my DeBoer story is I was reading, it might have been in Politico or something, where he talked about his freelance earnings for a year, and I was like, DeBoer's everywhere. He's got to be making a lot of money. And he's like, I make $17,000 a year from freelance. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, you're writing the wrong type of articles. I can make $1.5 off a dead wrestler. Like, come on. And that's why I don't touch politics. Like, an Atlantic article is worth like a third of like Mel Magazine Shaving Club article.
Right. That's because so many people want to do it. They want to make a difference.
I don't want to make a difference. God. I want to make a difference in my daughter's life.
Well, exactly.
I'm reviewing baby products now. That's good
yes,
money.
I saw that. They're sending you free
shit,
right?
I didn't even write 20. I wrote like 20% of that article. There's like a thing in there about me taking cabs. I haven't taken a cab outside of an Uber for work in like my whole life. I don't live in New York. It's just something from the press release that came. I don't care. It's a couple $100 plus the item itself. Like a stroller plus a car seat is a lot of money. It's $1,000, $900.
Hey Max, step on it.
Yeah. So there's going to be another one coming out on this like sleeper bassinet that's incredible that I was sent. That really expensive thing called the Snoo, and it's really good. But I don't know how much of my own voice will get in there. But I also don't care because you can read my own voice in Splice today. That stuff is he runs it pure, like he runs it straight. And then, the Ringer to a lesser extent, that's pretty much that just directly me. And Dead Wrestler stuff, wrestling history, that's mostly me. And Mail, that's mostly me. Most of the other ones just cut up my stuff. The Atlantic, the editors do so much editing that all I want from them, Men's Health, the thing I did in print in December, I think I wrote like 25% of that article and got the quotes from the guys in it. That was it. So weird. It's like, why would you? It's like hiring a wise man and then immediately talking over him.
Bog Beef used to have this anecdote about how, was it Wilt Chamberlain played lacrosse one year and became the best lacrosse player in history.
Jim Brown.
Jim Brown. It was Jim Brown. He was a great lacrosse player.
So, a lot of these people who are struggling and making practically nothing writing hot takes about politics, couldn't they just take their writing ability and write about something more obscure, but there's a market for it? They could.
I can tell you the answer to that. No, I've met them. A lot of them are not. No, think about it. We might have a lot of hobbies, right? You might have a lot of interests. We've had time to develop a lot of interests. Most people are, especially when they're in that world, they're very fixed on the take of the day. So when they see gaslighting, everything's gaslighting, right? It's all going to be run through the lens of Trump and gaslighting. Trump has immediately made it the worst year ever. Trump is destroying us. So everything gets funneled through that. There's no other stories that they can come up with. And most of them can't report either. So they're not going to track down Big Daddy Gary Goodrich and interview him. But not only that, ask him weird questions to get weird answers to put in a story. They're not going to do that. They're not willing to humble themselves to just do reporting also. They're not willing to just not put their ego out there. So they just do the same thing over and over again. So no, I don't think that skill. I think I read somewhere there's 54,000 jobs in the media in the United States. To look at Twitter, you'd think there's 54 million.
Yeah.
There's not. There's 54,000. Of those, you can shave off 2/3 as not being actual W-2 real jobs. And then of that group, it's just a fadingly small number who can actually write decent reporting. And it's the same people. And so it's really not that hard to sell this stuff if you turn in good copy consistently and don't fire anybody up and you're nice to your editors and answer your emails and phone. And that's just called working a job. But the most of the people that have these skills, and I'm glad I'm going to say it here because they need something needs to be known. Most of these people that their skills are like a take artist. I was talking to Ken Silverstein, the good investigative reporter, broke a lot of stories back when nobody cared about Obama corruption and that sort of stuff. But he tried to hire, when he was launching his website, Washington Babylon, a couple of Twitter influencers or people in that. It's kind of weird because they've all turned out to be kind of soft leftists, Chapo leftists by now. But he tried to hire some of those people to write for him on his site with this grant money he had. And the copy they turned in was atrocious. It was a bunch of strung together tweets, but less funny than any individual tweet. There was no content. They had no ability to construct things. And actually, in talking to editors like Russ Smith at Splice, who used to own the New York Press and used to own the Baltimore City paper, he was you'd be amazed at how bad some copy is when it comes in. Most of it has to be completely reworked. Most of it is just like we said, it's just product that you have to arrange to get out there. It's very, very rare that beautiful copy or clean copy comes in right off the bat. And I know this from grading student papers for years and years. And I'm one of the ones that can do that. There's people that can do that. I think people treat it like a job can do that. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing when you see these hot takers just throwing the hot takes out. That is their work, and I know they work at it. They work at it okay, can I get a this type of oppression takedown of this take to bring down this person. They're kind of good at playing whatever this type of Othello or Go or whatever the game is. They're kind of good at, or checkers. Maybe it's more like checkers. They're kind of good at making little moves like that, and they think of themselves as masterminds, in this world of influence, and they're trying to suck up to the right people. You even watch them, and I study them, man. You watch them on these takes, and there'll be things that they'd say in real life because some of them, they'd say it, but they won't ever say it on the tweets. They'll only say these certain acceptable things to say, and they won't go to that next step because ultimately they're just serving up oatmeal all day long. They're serving up freaking, they're not even serving up grits. They're serving up oatmeal all day long that the babies are slowly consuming, and I love it.
How many people who have like podcasts where they talk about culture and politics or whatever, which I know ironically that's exactly what we're doing here. How many of those people who do that like were people who wanted to be professional writers?
Oh, most of them, quite a few of them, and they might be from time to time. Like, Matt Chrisman will throw a story out for the outline. I wouldn't. They don't pay enough. I've only done a few for them, and but they'll throw a story out, maybe get a little exposure or something. But they're definitely a lot of they're failed in the media in some way till they hit their little niche. Like, oh, this is their thing, and I'll tell you. Like when they critique writers like Ben Shapiro or Jonathan Chait, I know those are like recurring things on their show. There's not really like a deep criticism of the business. It's just those people, and they mock them like they're like it's like SNL. It's essentially just impression style mockery of these figures. When no, it's structural. Like they want to talk about structural. It's structural. It's sort of like endemic to the media business that these problems exist. And like these writers that you're mocking might be dumb, but most likely you are too, because you're all part of the same ecosystem.
Do you remember the Devil's Dictionary?
Yeah, the Ambrose Bierce. That's a great. I mean, all his stuff is great. His short stories are great. Occurrence at Owl Creek. That's really good.
The stupid pole people have their own Devil's Dictionary.
Oh wow!
There was the definition of structural in that Devil's Dictionary was just. Personal. It means the exact. When they say it, they mean the exact opposite. It's not a structural criticism of anything. It's
SNL.
So being satirical requires two things. It requires you have to have some wit, and you also have to be able to be willing to go out on a limb.
Yeah.
So if you see like good political satire, it's a little bit dangerous, but it's also entertaining. The SNL version of that, which is just you put on I'm a big stupid person. My name's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, the guy who did all the impressions, Dana Carvey or whatever, in the he did several. I remember one of the things
Ross Perot, George Bush.
One of the things he said that gets brought up a lot because it's kind of uncomfortable now is he said you can't do a good impression if you don't like the person.
Yeah, exactly.
And that they can't go there. They can't go there. You know what I mean? So it just I agree, and the only take I've ever gotten from Chapo Trap House is that this person is sick, weird, or a
nerd,
a nerd. They're screw up in the head, and you shouldn't listen to anything they say. That's it.
And that's why they I think they do turn on. Like I think if they offered something more biting, deep, they went there, they went deeper, they went further, they wouldn't be as easy to dismiss by like Elizabeth Warren fans as they are. They're not. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, if somebody's going to hit you, like you're talking about, previous guests and good debaters who can hold their own. If they're going to hit you and you're insubstantial, you're never going to convert anybody. You're only going to preach to the converted. Like you're never going to turn anybody to your way. You're just going to be a safe harbor for people that want to listen to your bullshit over and over again. You have to be willing, and that's why great stuff that does go out on a limb. Like you're going to probably outrage a bunch of people, but you're also going to convert some. You might convert some right wingers. You might convert some oddballs. But you got to be something that. Like great work is the work that's going to provoke.
If you want what they're trying to do that's real, check out Jimmy Dore. He's talking shit. He's funny as hell, and he's making points. I can't remember anything where Jimmy Dore's like his entire point was like. Hey, this person is a weirdo. You shouldn't listen to what he says. He's like, no, this guy's a fucking asshole. Look at what you know what I'm saying?
Isn't he like a stand-up comedian too?
Yeah. Well, you're trying to entertain people, and I guess in that realm, they're trying to drop a point. I don't know if that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's something that we got to take away from all this stuff. I mean, this is like the age of the podcast and the age of the like political entertainer. in a different way. But to me, most of this stuff is no better than like Rich Little getting up and doing an impression of Ron Reagan and the whole room laughs, or that dude playing the piano and singing songs about Congress. Remember that dude? Like,
yes.
yeah. I mean, come on. Like at the end of the day, there's it's going to be laughed at in 20 to 30 years, and only those little fragments of it, like Tom Lehrer back in the 50s, that was actually good. Like good satirical material, rough, biting in a way, like his song about Werner von Braun being an opportunist. That's a great little tune, where the missiles go up, who cares where they come down? It's like that stuff lingers a little bit, but this, imagine like 50 years from now listening to like a Chapo episode and they're just mocking Arthur Chu for being a cuck or wimpy.
That's you know what will last, and it's in that same thing. What about who's the guy who did Conspiracy Theory Rock?
Oh shit! I know you're talking about
Robert Smigel.
There you go.
Oh yeah. He was a great artist.
Yeah, but didn't he get in huge amount of trouble for that?
Oh yeah. But you want to talk about that is unfortunately going to be timeless.
I mean, he also gave us the ambiguously gay duo, and people, I think people find that probably problematic now. Colbert, I think, voiced it.
He did. The SNL thing is a great example, because when I was a kid, they'd have their fake debates, and people loved it.
Yeah, it's very weird. I mean, that show used to be. You knew most of the performers were Democrats. Everybody was, although I guess Adam Sandler and others have grown up to not be.
They got some money, and now they're
but like most of the performers were Democrats or whatever. Yeah. But the material, even when it was topical, and I never liked the topical material as much as like the colon blast cereal or the weird
Unfrozen caveman lawyer.
Or any of the weird little animated features they throw in occasionally. The oddball stuff, that was always what I would hang around for. Or sketches that would just kind of have no topical bent, so you knew they'd still be funny in like 1990 and 2020 and 2050. They'll always be there, but they didn't wear it on their sleeve in quite the same way. And even as shitty as like Dan Rather and the CBS News was back in the day, it wasn't quite as rough as this like nonstop promotional news is today. And that to me has soured me on all of this kind of material. I can't get any value out of cheap parody. I can't get any value out of lame satire. Like just somebody saying I'm Trump and I'm dumb. That's not really that funny. I mean, he's funnier than that. Like you got to be funnier than the person you're attempting to take down. That's the other thing. You got to get up pretty early in the morning.
Technology has ruined parodying, because now pretty much anybody can put together with video editing, animation, all that stuff. You can make your own parodies in ways that you couldn't do.
Yeah, most of them are terrible.
It became accessible, so it became shitty.
I love studying that.
It went from something that you had to put a lot of effort into to do remotely presentably to something that pretty much anybody can do. I love
studying the tweets that go viral that are just real like softballs down the middle, where you're like, there's about as much bite on these as like a baby or a toothless grandpa. It's just, but for some reason everybody just shares it.
Like that God tweet guy.
Oh, that guy is the king. Although I'll tell you, those types of accounts, they got to just be laughing all the way to the bank. They did work that was essentially brainless. Fuck Jerry. That's another thing. Like, stealing memes. The George Takei page that's paying people to write George Takei's content. He probably doesn't even know it's a page. Like that to me, that's when I realized that ghostwriting was truly inescapable, when there was the story that broke that the George Takei page, which had been like the main thing that Facebook grew on the back of that stupid thing. But it turned out it was ghostwritten. Like, it'd be like learning that the worst book you ever read was ghostwritten. And you're like,
what did you think of Joe Keskel?
I think that's the best account, one of the best accounts on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen what he did?
No, what happened? Did he die or something in the tweets? That was the joke.
I don't know, but he changed. He rebranded the account, and
I got to check it out because I haven't checked it out recently. But I mean, he was better.
I literally can't say what he rebranded.
He was an example of someone whose satire and his parody of these people went beyond. Like his tweets today that were meant to criticize could be tomorrow's hot takes. He was a visionary.
I'm going to link you the account, and that's.
Oh, he's not. I follow him, so let me see where he's.
Oh yeah, there you go. There it is.
All right. So let's see.
Just.
You're talking about SpongeBob.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was Joe Kescold, and he rebranded.
Oh, because Joe Kescold was killed in the storyline, right?
I have no idea.
Like a roommate, like someone that he was trying to.
Now all these people follow that.
Oh my God. Oh my God! So he was trying to like the Joe Kescold in the story owned a brownstone, and he was constantly. You remember that? He was constantly exploiting his tenants, and so the way it ended, as I understand it, was he was killed. This must be who killed him.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Because he was an exploitative landlord. That was the joke. Like he was constantly talking about like. Not only are sanitation workers misogynist, but they don't like pick up the leaves in front of his brownstone frequently enough to make it easy for him to step over. Wow. Holy smokes. I can't believe. What's the reaction to this? What are people doing about this?
They're just figuring it out. I didn't even figure it out. And I had no idea, and I just retweeted him this morning.
I thought it ended. I thought that it ended.
No, he put up this morning. He put it's noon, but it's time to rise and grind. Saturday morning with with the.
Yeah, I see that. I see with the muscle.
Yeah, that was great. The
oh my God! What the? It's a Gohan with a SpongeBob face.
Yes. Rip Kobe.
Who's that?
What?
Who's that guy that big fat guy with a media career? He's been with the. He's got a strange egg-shaped head.
Oliver Willis.
No.
Movie Bob.
He used to beef with Amy a lot.
Movie Bob.
I know you're talking about the.
Henny, Doug Henwood.
Doug
right?
Henwood, right?
Yeah. He's the guy that Ken Silverstein likes it, but I'm always like, my line for him is like, Henny, what's the matter, chicken?
That's
the Spaceballs line. Colonel Sanders, what's the matter? Chicken.
One of my favorite things about the cuckold thing was the Kescold thing was that just as part of the joke, you could click over to his likes. He would every now and then he would retweet girls
he retweeted all the thought leaders that you needed to follow.
Yeah, he would retweet. He would retweet trans women. He would compliment them on their new breasts. He would.
Yeah. He would ask them which gender they preferred to be perceived as by him when he was admiring them.
And his likes were, there's all these, and God bless them. There's all these like thoughts trying to get their career going. Throw a Bernie shirt over the lingerie and snap some photos and stuff. And he would click like on all of those, right?
Yeah, he would always mention his partner was checking up on that.
Yeah.
He's using some kind of poly thing.
The satire, these people, they just sit at their job is sit at their computer all day and do all this shit. Go check out go check out Henwood's likes at some point.
Is he a bit of a Kurt Eichenwald, bit of a creep?
Not a bit. He's a car keys in the fishbowl pervert.
Oh God.
There's we sent one of them to Thought, and I had censored 70% of the picture, and she still got sick to her stomach.
Henny is the source, I believe, of the Joe Kescold joke about the brownstone, because Henny lives in a brownstone and is constantly complaining about trash collection and municipal service workers, despite being a leftist. Like somewhere there's a period where like a quarter of his tweets were about bad municipal services making it hard to park near his brownstone.
I had no idea before I mentioned that.
So Kescold must have taken it from that, because that was an ongoing thing where like even I think like the Chapo crew or their affiliated accounts were blasting Henny for like being so obsessed with this brownstone that he was in.
That's amazing. I had no idea. I must have smelled it. You know what I mean? There's you could just That tells you Keskold really really hit the money because yeah.
Yeah, Kesko was pulling from all the right places. Like he had all the right influences. I don't know what the story is of that transformed Page. That's insane. I do know he was killed in storyline though.
Oh, okay, by one of his tenants.
Yeah, I mean that's how I think it ended. So I just thought the account went away, but now I know.
He's so much better than the one that gets all the love is that Titanium McGrath one, which I've laughed 2 or 3 times at someone, but
too on the nose.
It's too hard.
Well, Titanium McGrath seems like it's a person who's an outsider trying to emulate this. Joe Keskold seems like it's someone who was in that sphere and like they're able to seamlessly imitate it.
That's right. It's like if you ever heard any of these, like someone get if you roast, whenever people roast geeks or nerds, whatever, every now and then someone will pop up and say this is. It's like you're it's like being racist, except it's to people with autism. Smigel is on the board of the Autism Society in New York, and he did those amazing Triumph Goes to the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that shit was.
That was a great bit that they kept doing.
You couldn't do that if he's a nerd because you can't do it that well if you not one of them.
It would not only be funny, but it would just be kind of mean.
Yeah.
No, I think just to sort of wrap it all up. I mean, in terms of the media, I guess the death of Joe Keskold, or whatever happened, the fictional death of Joe Keskold, maybe that marks the end of this era. Maybe the Biden nomination will. It's really fragmenting them. They're figuring out. They're not sure where to go. I'm watching it. You see that, right? Take confusion. Do you need to argue that Biden is the wokest candidate because he's so unwoke? You know what I mean? Like the takes are all over. The takes are gonna fall apart.
You hit the nail on that. You hit the nail on the head. This is we've been swirling a brandy glass around watching this because things are going to get really fun here really shortly. Because you know what we do to fascists, right? We punch them, right? Yeah, that's what we do. You know, you could post their address and stuff. What would you call someone who said maybe you should stay home in November instead of rather than vote against the fascists?
Oh wow! I mean, you'd have to call him. You'd have to call him that, the F word.
So things are going to get really spicy soon.
And we'll be here I'll be here for that.
And he'll be here to write the takes for it.
Oh yeah, and talk to the audience. You know, talk to you guys.
It's for the kids.
Only for doing the work for the kids. We're here for it.
Love to see it.
You love to see it.